But if you asked a 5 months pregnant girl to run off with you, and she agreed, I'd lose respect for both of you. What do you know? He asked with infinite contempt. You couldn't even cut a throat without making a mess of it. I was speechless. He saw it, and left me that way. He went off to school the next day without any argument, even though his sweetie was no longer there. Probably because I let him take the truck. A boy will take any excuse to drive a truck when driving's new. But of course the new wears off. The new wears off everything, and it usually doesn't take long. What's beneath is gray and shabby, more often than not. Like a rat's hide. Once he was gone, I went into the kitchen. I poured the sugar, flour, and salt out of their tin canisters and stirred through them. There was nothing. I went into the bedroom and searched her clothes. There was nothing. I looked in her shoes and there was nothing. But each time I found nothing, I became more sure there was something. I had chores in the garden, but instead of doing them, I went out back of the barn to where the old well had been. Weeds were growing on it now, witchgrass and scraggly fall goldenrod. Elphys was down there, and Arlette was, too. Arlette with her face cocked to the side. Arlette with her clown's grin. Arlette in her snood. Where is it, you contrary bitch? I asked her. Where did you hide it? I tried to empty my mind, which was what my father advised me to do when I'd misplaced a tool or one of my few precious books. After a little while I went back into the house, back into the bedroom, back into the closet. There were 2 hat boxes on the top shelf. In the first one I found nothing but a hat, the white one she wore to church, when she could trouble herself to go, which was about once a month. The hat in the other box was red, and I'd never seen her wear it. It looked like a whore's hat to me. Tucked into the satin inner band, folded into tiny squares no bigger than pills, were 2 $20 bills. I tell you now, sitting here in this cheap hotel room and listening to the rats scuttering and scampering in the walls, yes, my old friends are here, that those 2 $20 bills were the seal on my damnation. Because they weren't enough. You see that, don't you? Of course you do. One doesn't need to be an expert in trigonometry to know that one needs to add 35 to 40 to make 75. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But in those days you could buy 2 months' worth of groceries for $35, or a good used harness at Lars Olsson's smithy. You could buy a train ticket all the way to Sacramento, which I sometimes wish I had done. $35. And sometimes when I lie in bed at night, I can actually see that number. It flashes red, like a warning not to cross a road because a train is coming. I tried to cross anyway, and the train ran me down. If each of us has a conniving man inside, each of us also has a lunatic. And on those nights when I can't sleep because the flashing number won't let me sleep, my lunatic says it was a conspiracy, that Cottery, Stoppenhauser, and the Farrington shyster were all in it together. I know better, of course, at least in daylight. Cottery and Mr. Attorney Lester might have had a talk with Stoppenhauser later on, after I did what I did, but it was surely innocent to begin with. Stoppenhauser was actually trying to help me out. And do a little business for Home Bank Trust, of course. But when Harlan or Lester, or both of them together, saw an opportunity, they took it. The conniving man out-connived. How do you like that? By then I hardly cared, because by then I had lost my son, but do you know who I really blame? Arlette. Yes. Because it was she who left those 2 bills inside her red horse hat for me to find. And do you see how fiendishly clever she was? Because it wasn't the 40 that did me in, it was the money between that and what Cottery demanded for his pregnant daughter's tutor, what he wanted so she could study Latin and keep up with her trigonometry. $35, $35, $35. I thought about the money he wanted for the tutor all the rest of that week, and over the weekend, too. Sometimes I took out those 2 bills, I had unfolded them but the creases still remained, and studied at them. On Sunday night I made my decision.